Hi, everybody. It's Heather here with Magnificent Mamas, and I am joined by Jay Bailey. I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself.
Hello, I'm Jay Bailey, Alden Bailey, New Hartford, Connecticut, USA.
It is a pleasure to meet you. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your books?
Sure. I wrote my first book to copyright a character idea I had. You know the saying, thrown under a bus?
Oh, yes.
Right. So we all know the saying. It's in our culture. It translates across the pond and even into other non-English speaking languages.
Yeah.
But it definitely, anybody who speaks English, Australia, England, you name it, Canada, we all know the term. But no one ever connected a character to the idea. And that kind of dawned on me. I was about 60 years old, teenage children, and I educated and millennials. And I'm always holding up the end for everybody. And so I started teasing my daughter, and I said, geez, I'm under the bus so much, I feel like a mud flap. And so I started calling myself Mudflap for a joke.
Yeah.
And then it kind of dawned on me, this is actually a good character idea. Then I stopped talking about it. I said, you know what? I'm going to shut up. And so I had a mission. I got to figure out how to copyright it. So then I found out you can't just copyright an idea or a word. You got to do something with it. So the only way to do that is write a book. So I had to come up with a character concept. So the concept's supposed to be a mudflap is any person who puts their own interest below that of another person, taking blame or responsibility for that other person, and ends up under the proverbial bus. That was like the first part. But then in the second book, I kind of expanded it and shortened it and expanded the idea to a mudflap is any person that puts their interest below that of another person or a cause and ends up under the proverbial bus. See, so it's more simplistic and it takes in causes. The more it's very Americana, and then, like I said, it translates across the pond, but
a lot of people would understand that.
Right. Anybody who's ever done something for somebody else and they don't necessarily get the appreciation they should, but they still will do it. How about the firefighters that went up the towers?
Oh, yeah.
The ultimate mud flaps. They went up to save somebody else. And, a lot of those guys knew it wasn't a good deal when they went in.
And a lot didn't make it out.
Right. And actually, I'm sure a lot of them realized they might not make it out or they weren't.
Oh, yeah. I guarantee it. But you got to think about it. Besides just a big event like that, they're risking their lives every single day, whether it's, something as huge as the Twin Towers or just a regular fire.
That's right.
Ever know what's going to happen.
Or any EMT or anybody that. And so you see, once you kind of get the concept, it's big. And the writing could be endless. I had to come up with something. So I had all sorts of little notes and stuff to myself. And but then I had to have a surgery. So I was knocked out of commission. I'm an arborist. I've been in business for 40 years, cutting trees independently. But I was getting knocked out for a surgery. And so at 60. So I waited. I limped through the whole year and waited till January when I was going to take a break for winter and got the surgery. But when I came out, my mission was to write a book. I sat down with my notes and I was looking through them and I didn't really, I had a lot of ideas, but I didn't really know what to do with them. I just said, I just started from the beginning of my earliest recollections of things I could remember. And then it just, boom, just poured out 47,000 words. I wrote it in 3 weeks. It became more like a memoir. I didn't really mean it to be, though. I just started using my story and started calling myself Mudflap in the third person. And I just started rolling with it. And it just, when my writing actually, I think, got better as the book progressed. And then in my second book, I approach it as an author now because I already had a little experience under my belt publishing the first book.
Oh, yeah.
The second book's even much better written, but the content, the second one is Mudflap, the gloves come off. I'm just off the chart. It's kind of like, I know you're probably too young to remember Andy Rooney. He used to be this old guy at the end of 60 Minutes that had all these gripes and complaints about stuff. It was kind of like...
I remember the name, and I feel like I can hear his voice.
Right. And so Mudflap's kind of like Andy Rooney on steroids, man. I started going off the chart. And then I even criticized the literary world in the first chapter. And I critique and satirize the literary world itself and how I was perceived as a startup author. And again, I was so green at the time, I didn't realize you can get a sneak peek and see some of that online for free because Amazon gives you the sneak peek. I didn't even know it. So I'm going off on everybody, and I didn't know they could all read it for free.
That's hilarious. That's awesome.
Now, if I could write that today, I was more right than I realized. Being a self-published author is a nightmare of all sorts of stuff that you're not expecting. I help authors now. I started helping authors because I refer to authors now as I didn't realize how much authors are getting taken advantage of in all sorts of ways. The promotion people, I mean, everybody out there, the book cover people, the editors, the publishers, they're all making money. The authors aren't. There's all
sad
sorts of
because they were making the most.
Right. There's promoters and there's all sorts of promotion scams and there's all sorts of websites that you pay to get your book on. You don't necessarily sell anything. So there's good ones. So it's a festival out there. So I help authors. But you know what? That's kind of like, it's a cause that I don't really, I don't make any money on it. But you know what? I'm getting a little recognition and people appreciate it and it feels good. So Mudflap helps authors right now. It's one of my causes is authors themselves.
And I can agree. And I'm trying to word this right. Like I said earlier when we were talking privately, why I help people, why I offer like the book of the day section and these reviews and everything, why I'm not charging people because I want to actually help them, not be like some of these other people that, oh, well, sure, I'll help you for $5,000. No, it's not, especially if you know anything in the author world.
Oh, and all those companies contact you all the time. They want to republish a book, $5,000, they're going to get you in the library. All the promises they make.
Got the ones that say they're with a publishing company, but they can't even speak English or they don't have a website. That one was funny. Somebody was talking to me and I was humoring him. I was like, oh yeah, let me see your website. They didn't have one.
Well, what bothers me the most when we do our Facebook promoting, you have your post that you spent the time to get out there, our time's all valuable. And then some promoter, it's called hijacking the post.
Yes.
You ever get that term? They're offering their services and it's distracting for you. You're trying to sell your book and you want real readers to be looking at it. And you got this guy offering up his services. So at the same time they're offering to help you, they're ruining the post you've already made.
Or what I like is when it's like the same type of, they're hijacking it. But so like for my end, say I'm putting up a post about like free promotion and then somebody else is hijacking my post saying similar services but charging or, I've seen that too. That's funny.
Well, you know what you got to watch out for? Next thing you know, someone will be cloning your profile using your name. That's a new favorite tactic. They take an author who's successful.
I talked to somebody maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and they had the name, the picture, everything of an author in England. This person was talking to me, and they even knew the name of the author's book and everything. Oh, yeah, so-and-so helped me. Do you want me to, connect you to? No, I'm good at what I do. Thanks. Hold up, though. Wait. So the wording, like, you're in the U.S., so you know how people in the U.S. speak. If somebody says, am from, you're gonna people don't say am from, they say I'm from or I am from. They don't say am from. So like I watched the wording and how they, conjugate everything.
Especially if they're supposed to be from the UK, they'd be speaking a little, British English, which is even more.
Yes, but still, I've talked to plenty of people in Europe. But so I was like, oh yeah, where are you from? And they said, Manchester. I was like, well, no, first they said U.S. And I was like, oh, yeah, what state do you live in? And they said Manchester. I said, Manchester's not a state. I even Googled it. I know it's not. Hey, maybe, the sky's falling. And so I was like, it's not a state, right? I live in the U.S. I know my states. Yes, it is. I live in the U.S. too. It was like, okay. Well, so then I ended up finding the real author's page, their social media, everything like that. And I contacted her. And it was the real one. And she messaged me back and she's like, oh my gosh, I've been dealing with this for such an amount of time. And she's like, thank you so much for reaching out and letting me know that somebody was doing this again. Okay. I've got a couple questions I do want to ask. Who's your favorite author?
Who's my favorite author?
Huh.
See, that's a hard question because, I know so many of them and I'm not as well read as I would like to pretend I am. So I'll admit that. So who's my favorite author? I mean, that's really a hard question. If you were interested in more than one genre, obviously you're going to have more than one favorite author too.
Yeah. Stephen King is great. And, everyone knows who he is.
Right. I live in Maine in the summer and he's got a big following. But I'll admit, I'm not a big horror guy. Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you mention his name, everyone knows it's horror, it's kind of twisted stuff. But then, like, so I like sci-fi, fantasy. I like horror, don't get me wrong. I like mystery. I like thrillers. So I'm going to be naming authors from different categories. And some might be people, you know, that I've just recently met that are pretty good. So
Dave Wilson's pretty good. He's a fellow from Maine that writes a lot of kind of in the style I do of kind of the real world, even though he has fictional characters from Maine. So in my second book, I kind of pick on both sides. I believe in moderation. Moderates get things done. Did you know why Hitler and the Nazis hate moderate? We know they hated all sorts of groups of people.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't like trade unionists because they would combine forces against them. They actually combined the Jews with the Bolsheviks. And when they went after the Russians, they called it the Bolsheviks' Judeo threat. So he actually combined the two to make an enemy to get his people to, they were great with the propaganda. So, but why would you think the Nazis didn't like moderate? They're not hurting anybody. Why do they not like moderate?
I have no idea. I feel like I should know this.
It's a simple answer, and you're gonna laugh when it's because moderates are reasonable and they change people's opinions, and that's why they're dangerous. They want you to, and it's kind of like the way the parties are now. If you have any conservative ideas at all, then the liberals pick on you. If you have any liberal ideas, then the conservatives pick on you. They want it to be one way or the other. But the reality is, most of the country is moderate, and only half of us even vote. See, that's another weird anomaly. When the last election, was 175 million people voted, but there's 350 million people in the country. Like, only half the people voted.
And there's been so much over history for people to be able to vote, whether people of different races, women,
The world's gotten crazy. Oh, yes. And in this book, the second book, I have solutions that will save the country. I don't just talk crap.
Just a little bit, right?
I actually have solutions.
It's not bombing everything, is it?
Bomb? No, not bombing everything.
Well, I mean, that's one type of solution.
Yeah, just bomb them. Oh, yeah. Well, some people want to bring the rapture. Okay, let's bring it on. Let's just go. It's end of days. Light them all off. Let's roll.
Oh my goodness.
Right. Well, they're just about that crazy,
Yeah.
But so it's fun to have nonfiction is fun because, like I said, people do the things you can never even dream in a fantasy that they be that stupid, but they are. People are dumbasses, and they stick their foot in their mouth, and that's where I trip them up.
Nice.
Oh, and in my first book, I do something that it's almost impossible to do. Well, you got to read it.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I don't want to do any spoilers, but towards the end, Mudflap does the impossible that, couldn't be done by large organizations. It was a local story, something in the local, something to do with local town civics, we'll say.
Okay.
And he did what no one could do, and Mudflap did it alone, and he got the job done. He did the impossible. So sometimes one person can make a difference if they just dig their heels in.
I think we all forget that a little bit.
That's right. And you never know who that hero is going to be. And it could be a small thing happen that triggers other, it's a great little bit of history. Did you know Custer saved the Union? This is something Custer is just remembered for killing Indians and getting his ass kicked at the Little Bighorn, right? That's what he's remembered for. But in Gettysburg, when the pickets charged, when they were coming up and they're going at Cemetery Ridge and they were coming right straight out with 5,000 men, it's just big onslaught. They just came right at him. The Confederates were sending cavalry around the backside. And what was supposed to happen is they were going to come up behind the Union with the cavalry as the other guys were coming to the front and just break them in half. But Custer just happened to be on patrol, and they were coming down through this pass where the whole cavalry was behind them, but they had to go through a narrow pass. And so they were coming out of this pass, and Custer saw them and took his smaller cavalry, with a lot less men, and just hit the front of the line. Then another cavalry group saw what Custer was doing and came to their defense. And so what they did is they started a bottleneck, and they stopped them.
It's crazy to think about that. And then everyone says history, there's no importance in learning history. Yeah, there is.
It's my favorite subject. It's fine. You got to learn from history.
Yeah. My grandfather was a history teacher, and I've always loved history.
It's got to be like 8:30, right?
8:50 my time.
8:50?
Yep.
Yeah, so you got a good hour of stuff.
Yeah. I went over earlier today, too, with that other author I was telling you about. but most of my other ones have been about 30 minutes roughly, which is, depending on the book, the author, sometimes 30 minutes seems like a long time. Sometimes it seems like it's too short. So it just kind of varies.
Yeah, I'm easy to talk to, right?
Yep, you are.
Yeah.
And I appreciate this. And I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me and about all sorts of stuff tonight, apparently.
Yeah.
Just show that I'm real too. So.
Right. And we're always there helping authors. It's a great cause, isn't it?
It is. It is. It really is. It's very important.
So we'll see you. Authors are all welcome to join the Authors Inner Circle Facebook group. Books and Reviews is in my other big author group, where readers meet authors and their books is another group we have.
Well, me and you are going to have to talk about those later.
Book Mad with a small M. Book Chat with a small C. Book Reviews with a small R. Dash advertisements, etc., and the Book Lovers group. Those are all my promotion groups.
Well, I'm sure everyone listening is going to be checking them out as well.
They're welcome. They're welcome to check them out. But the authors, join the Authors Inner Circle. We're always there to help.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I can't wait to check out the secrets in your book.
Oh yeah, the secret. The global fraternal surface author doesn't want you to know, and I told.
Sometimes it happens.
Well, you know what? Secrets, what fun are secrets if someone can't find them out?
Yeah, you're right.
Let's see if they come after me.
Let's hope not. So we can do this again sometime.
Right.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye.